This is Mama Nicole, and her family struggles with poverty. She has 5 kids, and putting food on the table for the 5 kids has always been a struggle. Many families within Democratic Republic of Congo struggle with poverty. For them, if they don't work the day, there is a very likely chance that they might not have dinner for the night. One evening, as she's sitting at the church, someone came up to her and informed her that her eldest son, Diomba, had died working at a mine. First, she was surprised because she had never allowed her kids to work at the mine because she knew of the dangers involved. However, Diombe, being the nice son that he was, he just wanted to help his mother put food on the table. Regardless to say, Nicole was in utter shock. She couldn't understand how this could happen to her family. She was left with many questions, and one of the primary questions being, who killed her son? Was it their fault for being poor, or was it the Chinese mining company? Or what if this is the cost she and her family has to pay in order to lead this world into a greener future? After all, her son was mining for cobalt, something that promises taking us to a greener future. And in this video, we will try and understand who killed Diomba and what's the true cost of cobalt. In the last decade, we've seen a huge increase in the number of lithium-ion batteries that are being used across the globe. These batteries have revolutionized our lives. Without these batteries, we wouldn't have phones that fit in our pockets, or laptops that can sit on our laps, or even the cars that we can drive for miles on electric power. Now, lithium-ion batteries can store a lot of power in a small package, and that is one of their biggest selling points. Now, lithium is one of those elements that is very reactive and will literally catch on fire or explode if it is allowed to do so. And that is exactly where cobalt comes into play. It's basically added into lithium-ion batteries to ensure they don't go kaboom and basically explode and kill people. In order to have the devices we love and perhaps go towards a greener future, we need lithium and cobalt, and perhaps a lot of it, looking at the demand that's just going through the roof. Now, mining lithium has its own horror story, and comment down below if you would like for me to talk about lithium in a future video. But cobalt is what we'll be dealing with in this video. Almost all of the cobalt in the world is mined in Democratic Republic of Congo, and majority of it is further processed in China. Now, a lot of you watching this video perhaps know a thing or two about China, but let me quickly bring you up to speed about DRC. DRC is one of the poorest countries in the world. It has seen a lot of bloodshed over the years due to the civil unrest within the country. I find it surprising that DRC is one of the poorest countries in the world, considering they're the richest when it comes to natural resources in the world. It's not just cobalt, they have a lot of resources within this country. For the longest time, nobody cared about cobalt, and all of a sudden it took off like there was no tomorrow because of something called electric vehicles. As the sale of electric vehicles went up year by year, the cost of cobalt started rising. Now, you may assume that cobalt going up in price might be a good thing for Democratic Republic of Congo. And yes, a country has benefited from cobalt, and it turns out it's not DRC but China. Congo has 19 commercial mines that are responsible for producing cobalt, and they produce a good amount because last year 70% of the world's cobalt was mined in Congo. Now, the surprising fact is 15 out of those 19 mines are operated and funded by Chinese companies. That just seems a bit unconventional and strange. A recently leaked document shows transactions between Chinese mining firms and the former president of DRC, Joseph Kabila. Basically, there were huge kickbacks taken by the president and his close allies in order to give certain mining companies, mainly from China, an advantage over the rest of the people bidding to get access to these mines. The whole idea was, with this direct investment coming into the country, the government would make some money from the royalties coming from these mines, and at the same time, a lot of people will be lifted out of poverty because they would have jobs to work in within these mines. However, these mining companies have been lying on their balance sheets in order to prevent paying certain amount of royalties that they would owe to the DRC government and the people in general. And at the same time, these mining companies are being accused of polluting the environment of DRC and further worsening the quality of life within DRC. Now, there is a certain section of DRC who was employed within these mines. In an interview, these miners reported being paid too little to actually enjoy a decent living. Some of these employees reported how the Chinese employees were favored and were given better paying jobs. Meanwhile, a lot of the Western companies that rely on the cobalt mined in DRC like to really give themselves a pat on the back about the fact that they only use cobalt that is mined while adhering to strict human rights regulations and whatnot. Tesla stated that it only works with suppliers within DRC that comply with Responsible Minerals Assurance Process, whose standards focus on forced labor and the worst form of child labor. When the bar is set so low in a country where they have to make sure there's no forced labor or child labor that is being used, people tend to forget about workers who are working in these extreme conditions for up to 12 hours. Tesla did disband its public relations branch back in 2009 because it's a lot easier to not answer the reporters than to actually fix the problem. With no help coming from the government or not getting jobs within the mining industry, some of the people have decided to take things into their own hands, quite literally. Nearly 250,000 people work in small-scale mines which are called artisanal mines. These small-scale mines are hand-dug with nothing supporting the structure. Basically, there's nothing preventing them from caving in while the employees are in it. And at the same time, people can only be in these mines for up to 20 minutes because there is no provision for oxygen or fresh air. There's a very likely chance that you might just collapse in there due to the lack of oxygen. Accidents happen very frequently in these small-scale mines. Meanwhile, kids and women go to the Chinese mines in order to scavenge through the dirt deposits on the perimeter of the mine. This dirt is basically the waste from the main mining operation. It has very little to no cobalt in it, is why it's dumped on the outskirts of the mine. And it was on one of these slopes that Diomba died, as one of the slopes caved in and buried him and his friend alive, leading to their death. About 30% of the cobalt that comes out of Congo is made by these small-scale mines. Up until 2016, these Chinese firms were directly buying cobalt from these small-scale miners. But when Amnesty International raised concern about mining conditions which existed within DRC, first of all, these Chinese firms denied knowing that these people were going through such tough times. And then they pledged to make sure all the cobalt that they produce is ethically sourced.
Inside are dozens of men weighing and stacking massive sacks of raw cobalt under the supervision of a Chinese buyer.
Hi, what's your name? My name is Sun Dongjian. Sun Dongjian. Where are you from? Shanghai, Beijing? Beijing.
Now, the Chinese firms are not directly buying cobalt from the small-scale miners. If anything, they've hired subcontractors who buy it from the small-scale miner and then sell it to these Chinese firms. Distancing themselves from the issue is what they have done rather than solving the issue. Since 2016, nothing has really changed. Basically, the conditions within the mines are the same. People are still working under unbearable conditions. There's no fences that have been put around these big commercial mines. Literally, there are kids who are walking up to these mines and trying to scavenge the mineral. They've certainly beefed up the security around the mine. It's not just the mining that may kill you. Now, if you're caught by a guard, you might just be beaten to death.
A Congolese soldier whips an artisanal miner who was caught trespassing at an industrial mine. The Chinese mine managers are watching, laughing.
All of this while there has been an increase in birth defects in the region due to increased exposure to cobalt and mining-related chemicals. Too often, pregnant women have to make the choice of going to the river and washing cobalt or going hungry. Further, the water that's being used to wash cobalt is coming from a river that is the main source of water for a vast majority of the people. So it's not like you're safe if you're not involved in mining business. It will come and get you. Poverty in DRC is so extreme that when Diomba died, his mother Nicole didn't have enough money to put a cross on his grave. For months, Diomba's body laid in an unmarked grave. Finally, when Nicole was able to save up enough money to buy a cross that would go on her son's grave, a government official showed up who literally prevented her from putting a cross on her son's grave unless a bribe was paid.
Mama. Dad?
En route to the cemetery, we're stopped.
The chief is going.
Behind me over there where that crowd is gathered is the chief of this district, and he is trying to extort a bribe to allow Mama Nicole to go and place a cross on the grave of her son.
The government didn't just fail Diomba while he was alive. They continued to fail him even after his death. To answer the big question, Diomba was killed by all of these things, if anything. If his family wasn't poor, maybe they would have been able to put him through a school, and if he was at a school, he wouldn't be perhaps at the slope where he died. But at the same time, if his country wasn't as war-torn and corrupt, maybe there would have been better schools that would have made better employees, and perhaps DRC wouldn't have needed foreign investment or Chinese mining companies to take over their mines. It is really sad to see how little the value of life could be on the same planet, where my reality could be different than what Nicole's family's reality is. In the next video, I would like to explore how DRC came to be the country that it is today, and how a government official thought it's okay to extort money from a mother who's trying to get some form of closure on her son's death. Thank you for watching this video this far. If you watched it, please do subscribe and share this video with your friends and family who should perhaps know the cost that people in Congo are paying for our devices and whatnot. I'll see you next week. Till then, bye bye. Peace.